What if I told you that the greatest villain in human history was actually Jesus' closest friend? What if the act that led to the crucifixion, the betrayal, wasn't a sin, but the highest form of obedience? For 2,000 years, we were told a simple story. Judas Iscariot was a traitor, a greedy man who sold the Son of God for 30 pieces of silver. His name became a curse. To be called a Judas is the worst insult imaginable. But in the 1970s, in the deserts of Egypt, something was found buried in a cave. A book so dangerous, so contradictory to everything we believe, that the Catholic Church refused to even comment on it for decades. A book written by the very people who walked with Jesus. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is archaeology. When you hear what this book says, you will never look at the Bible or the cross the same way again. This is the story of the Gospel of Judas. To understand the shockwave, we have to start with the dirt. In 1978, near Nag Hammadi, Egypt, a group of Bedouin treasure hunters stumbled upon a cave. Inside, they found a limestone box. Inside that box, a codex, an ancient book made of papyrus, bound in leather. But this wasn't just any book. It was written in Coptic, the language of early Egyptian Christians, and it contained a title that made the hair stand up on the back of their necks: the Gospel of Judas. Now, you'd think this would be headline news, but instead it vanished. The manuscript entered the shadowy world of antiquities dealers and made its way to New York. It was left to rot in a freezer in Long Island, New York, for 16 years. It was passed between shady dealers who didn't know what they had. It degraded. Pages were burned for fire starter. By the time scholars finally got to see it in 2001, it was nearly dust. Why? Why would a text that claims to be the actual words of Jesus be treated like a hot potato for 30 years? Because the establishment knew, if this text was real, it would shatter the foundation of Christianity. Let's look at the story we all know. In the Bible, Judas is a caricature of evil. He is greedy. He is possessed by Satan. He walks up to Jesus, kisses him, and hands him over to the Romans. End of story. But this gospel tells a radically different story. The Gospel of Judas opens with Jesus laughing, not crying, laughing. The disciples ask him, "Why are you laughing?" And Jesus says, "I am laughing at your ignorance. You worship a God you do not know." Right away, the tone shifts. This isn't the gentle shepherd of Matthew. This is a Gnostic Jesus, one who teaches that salvation doesn't come from faith alone, but from secret knowledge. The text reveals that the disciples, Peter, Andrew, James, are praying to a lesser God. They are practicing a corrupt religion. Jesus singles them out and says, "You are not fit to stand before my eyes." But then, Jesus pulls Judas aside. He tells Judas that he is different. He tells Judas that he has a special destiny. Jesus says to him, "Step away from the others. I will tell you the mysteries of the kingdom. It is possible for you to reach it, but you will grieve greatly." He then tells Judas the ultimate secret. Judas is not betraying Jesus. He is liberating him. According to this text, Jesus was not a human sacrifice to appease God. Instead, the physical body was a prison. Jesus needed to escape his flesh to return to the spiritual realm. Judas, as the most enlightened disciple, was the only one strong enough to do what was necessary: hand over the flesh so the spirit could be free. This is where the narrative flips 180 degrees. In the Gospel of Judas, Jesus tells Judas, "You will sacrifice the man who clothes me." Think about that. He isn't saying, "You will betray me." He is saying, "You will help me take off this suit of skin." Jesus goes on to warn Judas. He says, "You will be cursed by the generations of men, but you will exceed them all, for you will sacrifice the human being who bears me." What does that mean? It means that according to the early Gnostics, the sect of Christianity that wrote this book, Judas was the only disciple who truly understood Jesus. while the others were praying to God to save Jesus' physical body. Judas was the only one who understood that the physical world was an illusion. The kiss on the cheek? It wasn't a signal of betrayal. It was a farewell. In this version, Judas isn't the villain. He is the hero. He is the one who helped Jesus fulfill his mission. Now, imagine reading this as a church leader in the 4th century. If Judas is the hero, then what does that make the church? If salvation comes through secret knowledge, what is the point of the priesthood, the bishops, or the Vatican? This book didn't just question a character. It questioned the entire structure of organized religion. So what happened to this gospel? Around the year 180 AD, a bishop named Irenaeus wrote a furious essay attacking a group of people called Gnostics. He specifically mentions a text called the Gospel of Judas. He calls it a fictitious history and demands that it be destroyed. And for 1,800 years, it worked. We knew the Gospel of Judas existed only because of Irenaeus' hate mail. We assumed it was lost forever. But the desert sand preserves what man tries to destroy. When the church leaders gathered to decide what books would make it into the official Bible, the canon, they had a clear agenda. They wanted a narrative where Jesus was fully flesh and blood, where he died and was resurrected physically. They wanted unity. They couldn't have a text circulating that said, by the way, the guy who sold Jesus was actually the smartest one in the room, and the other disciples were just idiots worshiping the wrong God. So they erased it. They burned it. They buried it. They hunted down anyone who read it. Until the 20th century, when the sands gave it back to us. Now, the biggest question, is it real? In 2006, the National Geographic Society finally restored the crumbling manuscript. They ran 3 independent scientific tests: radiocarbon dating, ink analysis, and handwriting analysis. The results were unanimous. This codex dates to between 220 and 340 AD. The text itself is likely a copy of a Greek original from the 2nd century, the exact time Irenaeus was writing his angry letters. This is not a modern hoax. This is an authentic, ancient Christian text. But, and this is crucial, does that mean it's true? The Gospel of Judas represents the Gnostic branch of Christianity, the branch that lost the war for orthodoxy. To the Catholic and Orthodox churches, this is heresy. To historians, it is a priceless window into the diversity of early Christianity. It proves that in the 100 years after Jesus' death, there wasn't just one Christianity. There were dozens. And the version we have today is simply the version that survived the political fight. So was Judas a traitor? Or was he the only one who truly understood the mission? The Gospel of Judas doesn't give us a new Bible, but it does give us a chilling question. What else was burned? What other truths are buried in the sand, waiting to be found? The story of Judas is the story of how history is written by the winners. And for 30 pieces of silver, or for 1,000,000 years of salvation, the question remains open. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe for more hidden history that the textbooks won't tell you. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Judas was a hero or a villain? I'll see you in the next one.